This is Michael Prasad with Church Brand Guide. In this episode, I wanted to share with you the difference between branding, marketing, and advertising. In church world, a lot of times this gets confused. There's a kind of this mix of ideas. What's advertising? Is it everything, or what is branding? So let's unpack what it is. The more clarity you have about these ideas, the better you can be at reaching more people. And that's the big idea. We want to be able to equip you. I want to equip you as a church leader, as a church, so that you can reach more people. And when you're clear about who you are, then you become this attractive church that is sticky. People want to come to it. They want to stick around and be a part of the vision that's happening there at your church. So branding is all about perception. It's all about controlling the perception that people have of your church. So if you have the right perception, then you're able to attract the right people to your church that you're going to be really good at reaching, so they're going to stick around. Perception is basically something you have, whether you're intentional or not. So people are going to perceive your church in one way or another, so you might as well be intentional about it. So that is, it's in alignment. The perception people have is in alignment with what God has called you to be in that community. It starts with your audience, defining who your audience is, who you're really good at reaching. In fact, Jesus models this for us. There's a story where a woman says to Jesus, "Even the dogs eat the crumbs from the master's table." And basically, it's a Canaanite woman that came to Jesus, and her daughter was demon-possessed, and she asked Jesus to heal her daughter. Well, in a very strange way, Jesus ignores this woman. And he was talking with his disciples, and finally she just kept on pressing in until she said that line that even the dogs eat the crumbs from the master's table. And then Jesus had compassion on her and healed her daughter right there in the spot. But she was a Gentile. She was not a Jew, and Jesus was there to minister to the Jews. In his time on earth, he was focused on ministering to the Jewish people. So the thing we can learn about this is that Jesus had a target audience that he was reaching when he was here on earth. In fact, even throughout the whole Bible, God chose Abraham's family, the Jewish people, to send the plan of redemption through their lineage, that family line, the Jewish people. There was a target audience even in our Bible. And the thing is, Jesus ignored that woman so that he could lean into reaching the Jewish people. It seems like not a Christ-like thing to do, but in the same way, it's actually very compassionate. Jesus was being very compassionate to everyone because he was so focused. Only the Jewish people had the background, the relationship, that when they understood what Jesus was doing, they could then take the message and change the world with it, like they did once Jesus rose from the grave. So Jesus modeled this for us, and we as churches can lean into that we have an audience that we are really good at reaching. Yes, we want to accept everyone into our churches, but as a brand, we want to lean into those specific audiences that we're really good at reaching. I would recommend 1, 2, maybe 3 audiences that you can identify, and then start to lean into that and build a brand around it. So branding is knowing who you are, so that you can control the perception that people have of your church. Marketing is basically the experience that people have with your brand. So once you've defined your brand, you now have to act it out in a consistent way that's in alignment with your branding. So if you say you're a community church, you need to be in the community. People in your church need to be out there serving the community. If there's not that alignment with who you say you are and in your branding and what you do as a church, then there's going to be a disconnect, and people are not going to want to be around very, very long because they're expecting one thing, but really what they experience is something different. If you're a church that's saying, hey, we are welcoming, when people step onto your property, you should have the best greeters in the town there to greet people and to help them get around that church and get whatever they need. So your experience that you provide on campus, online, and just out in the community needs to be very consistent with the branding that you have developed that says who you are. The third thing we want to unpack is the idea of advertising. So advertising is controlling the message. It's about the message you have as a church that goes out in different areas. So your messaging is going to be on Facebook, it's going to be on Twitter, Instagram, and whatever new social media platform comes out in the future. It's going to be on your website, it's going to be on postcard mailers, on signage. So as a brand, you need to get the messaging locked down so it's very consistent. So consistency over time is what's going to develop that stickiness so that people know who you are and recognize you when they see you. It's the little things that make the biggest difference. So branding is knowing who you are. Advertising is the consistent experience that people have with your brand. And then advertising is the messaging that is also consistent towards the brand that goes out there towards people. When you get this right, when you put it all together, then you're able to build a strong brand that has a great reach to reach people in your community that you are called to reach. So make sure you get this pulled together as a church brand, and you'll see a great degree of increase in your reach that you have in your community. So let's take a look at some of the top brands in the world and just unpack why they're so effective. So there's a list here of maybe 10 or so brands: Apple, Microsoft, Coca-Cola, IBM, Google, McDonald's, GE, Intel, Samsung. There's all these different brands that are out there that are super effective. And when we encounter those brands, we know it. So Apple, we've talked about them in the past. When you get an Apple device, there's a certain expectation that comes with it because they've worked really hard at developing their branding around this idea of thinking different. When you go to McDonald's, you know there's a consistent experience that's going to happen. If you're in Seattle and you get a quarter pounder, it's going to be the same thing in Kansas City or Miami. There's a consistent experience that happens. There's a brand that I've grown to love in recent years since I've become a father. I actually have 3 kids right now, 6, 3, and 1. So whenever my wife goes somewhere and I have all 3 kids, and if they're hungry, I've come to love Chick-fil-A. So the food's always been great. But now that I have 3 kids, the experience is amazing for me. Chick-fil-A, their branding is really built around providing as much value as they can within the context of their price points. So they want to provide as much value as they can whenever anybody comes into their store and visits them. So if I'm sitting down with my 3 kids, I know that Chick-fil-A is going to help me out. They're gonna give me some great food that my kids are gonna like, but then somebody's gonna come around and ask me if I forgot something, and I'm gonna say yes. I forgot the spoon. I forgot the Chick-fil-A sauce. I forgot the napkins. It's just what happens. And then they're gonna get it, and they're gonna help me out. They even have those placemats that you can put on the table that wraps it in plastic, which is perfect for young kids. So Chick-fil-A has developed this place in my mind that they're going to help me out. So I'm going to go there. If it's not Sunday, I'm going to go to Chick-fil-A with my kids because I know that I'm going to have a great experience. So what does that look like for your church? What is it that you are trying to create in a very overarching way? The church provides connection. It provides connection with God and with other people. Your church does that in a unique way that God has called you to do it, in a way that God's called you to do it. So once you figure that out, then that becomes your brand, connecting people to God and to others in your unique way. So lean into that. Lean into that audience that you are called to reach and really help them, provide them, serve them as a guide to point them to God and to the gospel. Thanks for joining me today on the Church Brand Guide podcast. I wanted to take a moment just to let you know about churchbrandguide.com. This is our website where we have a bunch of free resources to help you. There's a questionnaire to help you go through the logo process. There's a questionnaire to help you with a website design. And there's even a story flow chart to help you create great videos so you can tell great stories at your church. There's an ebook on there about branding your church. So just check it out, churchbrandguide.com. Also there you will find a course that I've created on church branding. So it walks you through how to create a brand for your church. So if you're ready for that, the course is a great investment to make sure you get it right. If you wanted to reach out to me so I can help you walk through the branding process with your church, I'd love to connect with you. Go to churchbrandguide.com, send me a message. We also have the podcast posted on iTunes. I love it when you leave me comments, so please feel free to do that. I'll answer your questions and get back with you. So check us out on iTunes, rate us on there as well. Love it to see us get high ratings so we can tell more people about this branding message, so we help churches reach more people. Thanks again for joining me today on the Church Brand Guide podcast, and I'll see you next time.